Loki season 2 episode 1.
Yes. Dropped
Is it
just last week.
is it just me? It might be just me. Or does it
Okay.
seem prettier this year to you or this season? It seems
Uh,
like they've changed the visuals ever so slightly, and I think I prefer it.
so I know from looking at stuff and like people comparing to like scenes we saw last season. I think this is on purpose, but it's brighter in places. Well, it's brighter when Loki was bouncing into the past.
Right, yeah.
So I think that's helping it like feel prettier. Also, I think they have like really kind of nailed the aesthetic that they want to go for with the TVA and everything. Of that like analog but kind of futuristic still. Um, I think that's also helping. Like another season, more time to refine like this world that they're building and kind of how it should look. Uh, yeah, no, I'd agree. It looks good.
Um, it really didn't skip a beat from where we left off,
No, it didn't. Which I'm
which I was
glad.
hoping it wouldn't. Yeah, I don't see. I never understand when stuff gets left on such a cliffhanger,
Mm,
and then they feel a need to build back into the show again. It's like, no, we left you there.
yeah,
Don't go like a little time jump and then flash back to what's happened. Just fucking let us hit the ground running and be like, oh my god, this is chaos.
I think
And it was actually refreshing because I feel like we've
yeah
not had that in a while.
we haven't, and I think it was also nice. Like it also makes sense to do that. Like if it was in on Earth or whatever, and like how long it's been since season one, like you could have played off like, oh, it's now still present day and like time's passed. TVA is in its own little thing, so there's no worry about how much time has been going on in other places in the MCU. And like you say, jump straight back in, hits the ground running. Uh, shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah. So we knew from the trailers going into this that this time slipping was a problem.
mm, yep, we
Um,
did.
but it's really interesting because at first, even though I knew time slipping was a problem, when we came back into this and we saw Morbius at the end of the last series not knowing who Loki was,
Mm.
even once I knew time slipping was a thing, it didn't occur to me that Morbius didn't know who Loki was because this was before he knew Loki.
Mm. Well, this is the thing, right? If we think back to season one and how it ended, our theory, or the theory at least you were saying shouldn't be possible, but I was throwing out maybe there's multiple TVAs, like this is a multiverse, and you were like, but the TVA is meant to exist separate to that. At no point, I think even back then, did we consider it could just be a different point in time in the
Yeah,
TVA. And I think, like you said, we learned in the trailer about time slipping, of which then everyone was comparing it to what we saw in Spider Verse with him
yeah.
glitching between multiverses. So then again, we're like, okay, so is he jumping between versions of the TVA? But yeah, like as soon as it's like he realizes this is early, like, and the way that they show the realization, they don't really necessarily say like this is early days TVA. It's when he time slips back and the cracks on the floor, and then it's like, oh shit, he was
Yeah.
earlier.
And this gives us a lot of context clues as well, because it's obviously we know Kang set up the TVA with the three fake timekeepers.
Hmm.
So this clearly shows that this was before he came up with the timekeepers ruse,
Well,
and everyone worked for him, and then he's come up with the timekeepers ruse, wiped everyone's memory again, and almost restarted it with them thinking the timekeepers came up with everything.
mm, well, my fit going off what like things got revealed, right? And the in the boardroom, obviously Loki reveals what he'd already seen, which is like there's five Kang heads. There's also different Kang statues. They don't all look the same. I think what was actually going on is it was multiple Kangs, maybe, and then the one that we know as He Who Remains. Maybe he got rid of them or didn't like how things were being run, and that's why like he wiped everyone and was like, okay, we need to do the three timekeepers and do it that
Maybe.
way to kind of erase this memory of the evil Kangs that were controlling things.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. But it was interesting to see how we're cutting all over the place. Then we get Ki Juan's character. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I forget how to pronounce his name. Star
So
of
yeah, you got his character's name is Ouroboros, which is
yes.
the snake that eats its own tail and forms the
Hmm.
circle, which is also the name of the episode. Ki Hu Juan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You gave it an effort.
Um, so then we meet his character, who
Yes.
maybe doesn't get his memory wiped because when we're
So
going back in time, he remembers the conversation he's had with Loki.
I have a theory with this, right? So he
Okay,
remembers uh Morbius. Morbius? But Morbius doesn't remember him, and he's like, well, yeah, you ended up on the wrong floor off the elevator. Almost like everyone he's right on the lowest floor in the basement, could very easily be
been
forgotten.
forgotten. Yeah,
And essentially, like, whatever was used to wipe everyone's memory, Kang didn't even realize he was down there. He just didn't get
yeah,
his memory wiped. But because he's down there alone, he don't have a fucking clue what's going on upstairs. And that all this stuff happened.
yeah. That's what I assumed. That's why Mobius didn't remember him.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got him pretending he did. But I did enjoy the notion that the past and the present were happening both simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
but they were still chronological. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, the way they
Because
were doing it
Loki's
is
like experiencing time identically at both times.
yes.
And it's almost like when your memories refresh is when he tries to remember. He's like, no, I don't know anything about that as he's
And then your
remember,
brain,
and because
yeah,
he's
and then
trying to remember, the memory's like, no, I'm here, see?
mhm,
It's
yeah, it's
interesting.
that thing where you're like, you like, oh no, I don't know that, and then someone goes, it's like someone saying, no, yeah, you were there, and you go, oh wait, no, yeah, I was there, and like a memory comes back in. I really liked, yeah, like you say, how they were passing that information across time essentially,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how they were showing Loki's in the past, and those things, like, and something that I think a lot of people say about time travel and stuff is like, oh well, if you do something in the past, it's going to change, like affect so many things in the future. Like they're playing into that of like, well, yeah, if they had a conversation, there's things that then are gonna be remembered in the future.
See, I think with the way the TVA is portrayed to us as well, you can get around a lot of that concern with time travel by simply going, well, if whatever you do in the past is going to affect the future, it's already affected the future, so you don't need to worry about it because you were supposed to do it.
Mm,
Because we're explaining that time is just a big loop here,
yeah,
an Ouroboros.
yeah,
So every single time this is what Loki's done,
hmm,
so he has to do it, even though he doesn't realize he has to do it. So it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was really well done.
The
Then we get
oh, I was gonna say the
go on.
effect for time slipping was so well done.
It looks really uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Yeah, they really sold the like how painful it looked, and also visually, just like the way that they did that effect of him tearing apart, like was very very cool.
Yes. I'm impressed with the quality of the visual effects so far.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind we were quietly concerned that with this being the only one that wasn't delayed and the
Mm.
no reshoot policy, as well as some stuff that's come out this
Well,
week, which we'll discuss once we get to the news, I was a little bit worried we were going to notice it.
yeah, and I mean, but I think something I noticed that they quite clearly, like when Loki was time slipping in the like control room area, that is very clearly filmed on a practical set because they were doing like handheld camera walking around pan. It's like that's they seem to be filming on bigger like actual sets than they would normally, which I
Yeah.
think is also helping like not relying so heavily on CGI and everything.
hmm Um, but it's crazy because it felt like we got a lot of plot, but not a lot of plot at the same time.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So the episode was very much focused around this problem of the time slipping,
Yeah.
which, based on what else we've seen from the trailer, I don't think they have actually fixed, even though they think they fixed. Um,
Yeah.
and we also find out that these kind of power surges that are going on, that we
Mm.
see throughout the episode, Chekhov's gun, um, are because of the branching timeline. So the way it's explained is the timeline is essentially a power cable, if you imagine it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden, you've got a load of loose cables inside the like shrink wrap, and they're bursting out, and there's too much power coming through because they're all generating current. Because these branches are now big enough to have an impact, and you've got so many of
Yeah.
them.
You
So he's like, I need to do something about that.
Yeah, we learn this is called the temporal loom.
Yeah,
Is and everyone's like, what the fuck is this? And you got Ouroboros is like the thing that runs like this controls the whole TVA. Obviously we've experienced it as just a thing on a screen and kind of just we've seen that visual on the in the where the man who he who remains was like we saw the way that the branches and everything were. Didn't realize that it's that basically like these threads being wrapped together by a machine. Um, Something to note about that though is when Loki goes back, time slips back in time. There's when he's upstairs, like in the TVA bit, there's discussion of like a load of new branches. It's almost like they've had these events happen a few times.
yeah,
Because also I noticed someone else was like, clearly this happens a lot because they have blast doors built for this happening. And you don't build blast doors if it's not something that's clearly been an issue before. So
yeah.
I
It's
wonder if that's also, like you say with Chekhov's gun, like I wonder if that's something also going to play into effect, that this is like a recurring thing the TVA deals with.
yeah. It's also really funny because the TVA has like been managing the timeline and like the sacred timeline and the way, and they've essentially dictated how everything's happened so far
Mm.
because they're following the sacred timeline. Um, the entire time they followed it without any repercussions.
Mhm.
But then we get to this point and none of them know what the thing that powers the building they're in is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this idea of just they just do as they're told and they don't question anything.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a maybe you should question things, guys, and don't just take what you're told as God's honest truth.
Yeah. It's like they're told this is how things are done. And they're like, okay, cool, doing my job. And then it's like, as soon as something new appears, it's like, this isn't in, like, this is not something I've been told or how to deal with. They're like, what the fuck do we do now? It all just crumbles. Like, everyone's falling apart. They're now deciding, like, okay, we're not going to purge anything until we figure this out because maybe purging everything is bad.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
they're like we all had lives on the sacred timeline. Then we
yeah.
deviated, and now we're here working. That means we could have had actual goddamn lives, but they decided we didn't get to. So it's very interesting to see how that's going to play out going forward, especially the kind of difference between those who still believe in the sacred timeline and those who are like, no, guys, listen, stuff isn't as it should be right now.
Hmm. Also, with the time slipping, Loki jumped forward in time as well.
Yes, the very last one he went forward in time, which is interesting.
Yeah. And I do think, like you say, that's not solved. And then it was like, all this is happening, obviously, and the episode was very focused on Loki's time slipping. Got to set up all these new kind of main bits of information about how the TVA works, while also let's fix this time slipping issue that Loki has, so that then he can be helpful.
Yeah,
But
100%.
also going on is, what the fuck did Sylvia do? Loki doesn't know that she killed.
Yeah, he's assuming that she did because everything
Yeah.
was going wrong, but she doesn't know that for sure.
Uh, we have no idea like what happened after that. Um, and then all the TVA board member was just like, right, send an army after her. like, like it's literally sending a whole army for
Yeah,
one person, and then we end the episode getting to see where Sylvia is.
Yeah, Sylvie.
Sylvie. Um, in a
Yeah, she,
McDonald's.
which we kind of knew was coming because of all of the advertising McDonald's did around Loki.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of that moment that I think we're going to see from a lot of the characters who are like debating whether they want to go back to their timeline or live on the sacred timeline or
Hmm.
whatever. Is I can do anything now. We're no longer trapped by this notion of this is the sacred timeline. You think you want to do this, but actually, if you do something else, you're gonna get pruned. She
Yeah.
can try and do whatever she wants, and it doesn't matter now,
Yeah.
which is really really cool.
Now, I don't know if you feel similarly, but this almost feels like it's, to me, they're doing a better job at setting up Kang than Ant-Man did.
That is a very common sentiment I've seen. Um, and yes, exactly what it is. Tom Hiddleston has come back terrified, but they're talking about it as if it was this episode alone. And everyone's like, oh, the 20 minutes of this episode where they're dealing with Kang or talking about Kang
Hmm.
is more intimidating than all of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp made Kang threatening.
Yeah.
I think people are forgetting overall quality compared to Kang. I know people got butthurt that Kang got beaten by ants. Need I remind people that ants are terrifying, and if they were the size of you would shit your pants because they could demolish you. But
Also,
also,
there's many Kangs.
yeah, exactly. Just because this Kang got beaten by ants doesn't mean they all are. Um, this Kang was still intimidating and quite scary. But then you have He Who Remains, which again shows you a whole different kind of
Mm.
Kang who was intimidating in his own separate way. It's all coming together to give us this picture of what we should be afraid of. Now they just need to deliver.
Yeah, I think it feels to me less about like actually showing us and giving us Kang like Ant-Man did, which I do agree that helped us understand how strong and powerful he is. And then they tease like the Counselor Kang and stuff. I think what's more interesting is like this is showing a different side of Kang again, where it's like clearly there was some in power, and we don't know what happened for them to then hide from power, or he who remains ended up in charge. So then it's like, okay, there's different levels to like how long Kang's been controlling stuff, like what the fuck's been going on that we didn't know about. I think that's what's more interesting about Loki.
100%. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see now that Loki's been fixed, or so we're led to believe,
Yeah.
and the loom's been shut down or whatever, managed, maintained. Kind of, where do we go from here? Are they just going to be hunting Sylvie the whole time? They're going to be hunting Sylvie and dealing with like infighting in the TVA over whether we're pruning branches or what. If they're not pruning branches, what function do they serve?
Hmm.
Or are they of the opinion of like everyone stop pruning branches until we find Sylvie and work out
What happened?
what the plan is?
Yeah.
Um, it's very much a case of all powerful entity is in the TVA is just like, well, shit. Now what do we do?
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see, like you say, if they focus on getting to Sylvie and finding like warning her what's coming for her, or if it's either protect her, or if it's going to be kind of a mix of them hunting down Kangs for more information,
Hundred
um,
percent.
trying to figure out like what was going on before they all had their memories wiped. Maybe that's part of it. Like them trying to
Yeah.
relearn essentially where the TVA came from.
I what I think right now I would like to see
Hmm.
is them to tune just instead of getting rid of the time slipping, like what they did was kind of effective, so now he doesn't time slip as much.
Yeah.
So like it's just like it's like he's been medicated now. It's only going to happen occasionally.
I'd like
And
to
then
see
use
it.
that to like tell multiple different stories, and you get like this kind of jump around where he's trying to solve the problem before it's happened,
Mm.
while it's happening, and after it's happened.
I wonder if you think about it, they kind of pulled him out in the TVA. So maybe when he's in the TVA, he doesn't time slip. But when they start like traveling to timelines and different things, he's then not like essentially where he should be. So then it starts affecting him again. And maybe that's where like he jumps forward in time, sees Kang before he becomes Kang in this timeline, then sees him what he's done to the timeline. Maybe
Yeah,
that's where
100%.
starts playing into effect. There's also a lot of people were like trying to use the little keypad things for Miss Minutes, and Loki had to be like, Miss Minutes is gone. Is she rebooting, or is she just gone? Do we think?
I honestly don't know. I mean,
I
Loki doesn't trust her
no.
because she was there.
I think it's rebooting or something, and that Miss Minutes is actually going to have the answers to them of like how they all got their memory wiped to what happened before all that. I think Miss Minutes is going to be the key to that.
You think once Miss Minute starts working again, is going to be the big bum bum, here we go, oh shit moment.
Yeah, or it's like maybe it's like program restarted so the Miss Minutes doesn't know everything that's happened and starts on welcome to the TVA. Kang is your like, and it's like back to default. Doesn't realize that all that's not meant to be told, sort of, and then spills a load of information. Maybe.
Yeah, definitely possible. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
We've still got a lot more story to tell, obviously.
we have still a lot of places we could notice issues, as we discussed
100%.
last week.
But I definitely think it is a solid
Opening.
welcome back
Yeah.
to this this story,
Yeah.
and let's just fucking on the ground, hit the ground running, stuff happening, chaos, just as you left it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.